Right friends, the first capsule is on elimination of TB. The new incidence of cases are targeted to be eliminated by 2025 as per National Health Policy, which was declared recently, and we are going to see what are the constraints in eliminating TB by 2025. And look into the first slide. This is India shares 27% of global tuberculosis burden, and here the incidence of new cases in 1 year are 28 lakhs, and the reported cases of this multi-drug resistant TB are around 34,000 in 2016. Here, people suffering from MDR and XDR TB, they are not receiving adequate treatment in our country, and when resistance is not there, it spreads fast. And vulnerable sections for tuberculosis, vulnerable sections are the people suffering from malnutrition. Please look into these statistics. As per the recent Family Health Survey, stunted children are 38%, wasted 21%, and underweight 36%. We discussed in detail about these things. So, still in 2015 also, we are having a substantial population of stunted, wasted, anemic, underweight children, and the same is the case with elder population also. Why I am showing this slide is directly tuberculosis is linked with malnutrition. When malnutrition is there, then susceptibility for diseases will increase because the resistance will decrease. So, malnutrition is one of the main reasons for this high incidence of TB in our country. And balanced diet, we discussed several times, balanced diet is missing in our country. So, it is resulting in malnutrition in our country. So, for healthy human being, cereals, proteins, vitamins, minerals, these are required, but these are missing, and this is one of the reason why high incidence of TB is in our country. Come back to the discussion on TB. It is an infectious disease caused by bacteria called Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and the point here is it can affect any organ of the body such as the brain, kidneys and the bones, but the most vulnerable is lungs. When it affects lungs, it is known as pulmonary tuberculosis, right? And TB can be looked at from two perspectives. One is infection, second one is the disease. TB infection is the first stage, and TB germs, when they enter our body, they stay inside, mostly in the lungs, and body's immune system will resist the disease. They do not multiply and it does not result in sickness. So, this is TB infection, and TB disease is the second stage when our immune system fails, maybe because of malnutrition, maybe because of several other diseases. When the immune system fails, then TB infection will transform into TB disease. So, when the immune system fails, what happens? TB germs will multiply and they move to other parts of the body and they start damaging the organs. It results in sickness, and TB germs can be passed on to the others also, right? So, this is the difference between TB infection and TB disease. Then other points, it can spread to any organ in the body, basically through the bloodstream and lymph nodes, and most often it is found in lungs. Bacteria can live in inactive form for several years, and as I have already told you, if the immune system weakens because of HIV infection, alcoholism, then if malnutrition is there, then when the immune system weakens, then these germs can become active It can cause death in tissue of organs they infest, and it is contagious disease. And infection is most likely to occur if someone is exposed to someone with the TB on day-to-day basis, right? So, TB is bacteriological disease, we have just now discussed. It is caused by bacterium called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And second point is, there can be two stages, TB infection which may transform into TB disease under certain circumstances. And other points also we have seen, when our immune system weakens because of whatever the reason, then the multiplication of these germs will take place. And tuberculosis, how it spreads, how it does not spread. I have given the differentiation. The TB bacteria spreads when a person who is infected with the disease coughs, sneezes or laughs, then these TB germs are passed through the air and infect other person. If one is exposed to someone with the TB on day-to-day basis, then this infection spreads. Then how it does not spread? Latent infections will not spread. We have discussed about two stages of the disease, or you can say the first stage we have discussed, that is infection or latent infection, that will not spread, but when it is in the disease stage, it spreads, right? And through quick or casual contact, it will not spread. By sharing food or utensils, by shaking hands, by using public telephones, normally it won't spread. So, under what circumstances it will spread, I have given here. Then, aim of the treatment, I have given here, to cure the patient of TB, to restore their quality of life, and at the same time, relapse of TB must be prevented, and to reduce the transmission of TB to others, and to prevent the development and transmission of drug resistant TB, right? So, how it is cured? It is cured by killing the TB bacteria in the person's body. And please don't forget, the medication or normal treatment lasts for 6 months to 8 months. Whereas for drug resistant TB, it is much longer. And normally for tuberculosis, first line drugs are used like isoniazid, rifampicin. So, these are normal first line drugs are used, and combination of drugs are normally used to prevent relapse, right? So, this is the procedure of curing tuberculosis. Then, let us look at why this normal tuberculosis turns into MDR-TB and XDR-TB. People talk about 4 types of drug-resistant TBs, and the first term is drug-resistant TB. It is a generic term, and the second one is multi-drug resistant TB, and third one is extensively drug resistant TB or XDR TB, and the fourth one is totally drug resistant TB, but World Health Organization is not recognizing that totally drug resistant TB, and I am discussing this MDR TB and XDR TB or extensively drug resistant TB. So, MDR TB is multi-drug resistant TB. It is the tuberculosis that does not respond to at least isoniazid and rifampicin, the 2 most powerful anti-tuberculosis drugs. If the tuberculosis is not responding to 2 most powerful anti-tuberculosis drugs, then it is classified as multi-drug resistant TB or MDR TB. What about extensively drug resistant TB? It is a severe form of multi-drug resistant TB with additional resistance and to any of the 3 second line injectables, right? So, you can say extensively drug resistant TB is a severe form of MDR TB, and the biggest problem world is facing today is MDR TB and XDR TB, and these 2 are reported in several countries. And in 2014, worldwide, 5 lakh people developed MDR-TB, and 9.7% of these cases, or you can say 10% of these cases, are XDR-TB, and India is estimated to have around 70,000 to 1 lakh of these cases, right? And why this normal tuberculosis turns into MDR-TB and XDR-TB? You may have a doubt why normal tuberculosis turns into MDR-TB and XDR-TB, because when people do not take their TB medicine regularly or leave in between, as I have already told you, the medication is between 6 months to 8 months, but after 1 month, people will feel relief. Subsequently, they abandon the drugs. When drugs are abandoned, then this will transform into MDR-TB and XDR-TB. When people do not take all the combination drugs as prescribed by the doctor, then when a person spent some time with someone known to have MDR-TB or XDR-TB, then relapse of TB after curing, once it relapses, that means the second time when that infection affects the person, sometimes it becomes MDR-TB or XDR-TB. The spread of this disease is also due to migration of people from the areas of the world where drug-resistant TB is common. So, the world as well as our country, at present the biggest threat we are facing is MDR-TB and XDR-TB. Please understand, right? And now MDR-TB, there is recommended test, that is nucleic acid amplification test by expert, and you need not go into these details. And what is the medication? Medication is bedaquiline. Bedaquiline is the recommended drug for multi-drug resistant TB, and care is to be taken while using this medicine, and there are reports that it disturbs the functioning of the heart and liver and interacts with some other drugs also, right? So, bedaquiline is the recommended drug for multi-drug resistant TB, right? So far we discussed about what is meant by tuberculosis, how it causes, how it spreads, what is meant by multi-drug resistant TB, XDR-TB, and these things we have discussed. Now let us come to the ground reality. That means before analyzing whether elimination of TB by 2025 is possible or not, we have to look at ground reality. Ground reality is, it affects mostly malnourished people. I have already told you, it affects mostly malnourished people, and sufficient nutritional support is not available for most of the families. Another important aspect is, sufficient nutritional support is not available. Sometimes it may lead to relapse of TB, and in several families, the persons affected by tuberculosis, if they are not able to take care of the persons affected by tuberculosis, they are forced to desert the people, sometimes abandoning altogether because of their socio-economic condition, because of their hand-to-mouth existence. Sometimes some of the poor families are forced to desert the people affected by tuberculosis, and incidentally, most nutritional support is required for this disease. Most of the patients go to private hospitals, and after becoming penniless and much sicker, they approach the government hospitals, and by the time they come to government hospitals, they are penniless. At the same time, the disease might have reached advanced stage. Then pharmaceutical companies are not investing that much in tuberculosis research, and some people have an impression it is a poor man's disease, and whatever the reason, the pharmaceutical companies are not investing much in research of tuberculosis. Then the drugs, especially for MDR-TB, the drugs became expensive and inaccessible to most of the people. Even that bedaquiline is available only in 6 places of the country. Case notification from the private sector is mandatory, but a fraction of the cases detected and treated privately are being brought forward with case notification. The point here is case notification from private sector is mandatory, but only a fraction of the cases detected and treated privately are reported with case notification. Then for early detection, there are 500 CB-NAT machines, but most of them are out of reach to the TB affected people. So, for early detection, these CB-NAT machines are required, but most of them are out of reach to the TB affected people. And what about drugs? We are discussing about various ground realities. It is pertinent to note that only 2 drugs were invented for tuberculosis during the past 40 years. The irony is, only 2 drugs were invented during the past 40 years. As I have already told you, not much money is being spent on research. Then another important aspect is the availability of drugs required for multi-drug resistant TB. For multi-drug resistant TB, the availability of 2 drugs, one drug is delamanid and the other one is bedaquiline. Delamanid and bedaquiline, out of these 2 drugs, delamanid is yet to be approved in India. Even bedaquiline also, it is only available in 6 centers in the country. So, people living with MDR or XDR TB are not receiving adequate treatment. Another point is, moreover, bedaquiline is given after a lot of delay and hence patients are receiving bedaquiline sometimes just before their death, right? Then what needs to be done? First and foremost is the capacity of the public sector is to be augmented. The capacity available with the public sector must be augmented. Second important point is the government must engage aggressively with the private sector for case notification. As we have discussed, private sector cases are not being notified properly. That's why only 50 to 60% of the cases are registered in our country. Because the biggest problem with the tuberculosis is if they are not properly recorded, then sometimes the infection may spread to other people. For early detection, CB-NAT machines must be available with each and every district. Then next point is diagnosis for multi-drug resistant cases must be expedited, and here please look into this. Access to new drugs like bedaquiline must be made universal. It is only available in 6 centers of the country. The other drug, delamanid, must be approved and it should be made accessible for treating drug resistant TB cases. Next point is case finding is already part of the revised National Tuberculosis Control Program and it is to be ensured 100%. So, the registration of cases. Next point is budget for RNTCP, that is revised National Tuberculosis Control Program, must be increased and financial support and nutritional support must be ensured for the people suffering from TB. And another point is proper monitoring is to be kept in the treatment of MDR TB or XDR TB. And the important point to note is it requires treatment up to almost 24 months in case of MDR TB or XDR TB, right? So, final word, make available free medicines to both the patients undergoing treatment through either the private sector or the public sector. The first point is make available free medicines. Make advanced testing of early stage tuberculosis available across the country. Make advanced testing of early stage tuberculosis available across the country. Then undertake universal testing for drug resistant TB. Then concentrate on patients, taking care from private doctors, that is most important, target the high risk populations, give financial support to the poor people, at the same time give nutritional support to the people below the poverty line, and monitor proper use of medication, as the medication for TB is for 6 to 8 months, whereas for MDR TB it is extending up to 24 months. Most important is the drugs, bedaquiline and delamanid must be made available to treat drug resistant TB cases. This is the need of the hour. So then only we can get rid of fresh incidences of tuberculosis by 2025. Government's idea is absolutely correct, but all these things whatever we have discussed must be implemented to get rid of fresh incidences of TB by 2025. Right friends, we discussed one important topic pertaining to our country, that is eliminating fresh incidences of TB by 2025. There are several challenges ahead of the government. One is making available drugs to all the people affected by TB and making available drugs like bedaquiline for the people affected by multi-drug resistant TB. So, if these things are ensured, then it is possible to eliminate by 2025, but lot many challenges are ahead and governments have to take concrete steps to overcome them to realize the mission of eliminating fresh incidences by 2025. Right friends, have a nice day. Thank you.